So we, as the aware being, are aware of everything that can obscure and limit the natural flow of consciousness. There is a natural impetus in the flow of consciousness that is moving to free itself, to unravel itself. And so this natural flow just wants to flow. There is a natural intelligence that knows how to balance and harmonize itself through all the layers and dimensions of consciousness. It knows how, and it is constantly attempting to balance, harmonize, and know the fullness of itself. It can be impeded by its own patternings, its own limited patternings and obscurations. And of course, these play as the mind consciousness and conditioning. And so as the aware being, we are able to naturally illuminate everything that plays as an obscuration that impedes the flow of consciousness moving to balance and harmonize and know itself fully. It is the way of utter abandonment of everything that is a position, everything that has been known, all experience, all concepts, all ideas and beliefs. It is the way of utter abandonment. Freedom finds you while you are resting in utter rawness, in total openness, in the relaxation into the resting being. Freedom finds you. Freedom finds itself. It is utterly natural. There are so many overlays that act as obscurations, and generally these overlays are acquired knowledge that is held onto as a false truth, a misunderstanding, and protections and conditionings, learned ways of being. It is impossible to use the mind to let go of all of this, even though there are so many ways that we can try. But the way of abandonment, of utter abandonment, is to quite simply illuminate everything that acts as an obscuration. And in the illumination, in the full presence of aware being, of every obscuration, every idea, every concept, every way of holding on to being someone, there comes a letting go, a relaxation deep enough that freedom flows in, harmony, balance flows in. And so in this moment, it is to let go of everything but the felt sense of being here, to let go of any sense of past, of story, to let go of all the ideas and concepts, the weighty burden of someone that thinks they know something or has traveled even through a life. In this moment, in the felt sense of being, there is a natural letting go of it all. The being has no attachment to past. The being has no dreams of a future. The attachment to past is what perpetuates the karmic pain cycle. So in this moment, it is to notice that the felt sense of being is utterly free of that in this moment, right now. The being does not have that as a burden. The being right now is utterly free. In the moment of felt sense of being, this can be confirmed, that it is only thought that perpetuates the attachment to past. We could also say that there is held memory tension in the nervous system. But that tension, if it is not interpreted and does not, through that interpretation, activate the conditioned habits to protect, then the felt sense of the tension that's held in the nervous system as like a cellular memory, we could say, that is the intelligence that is attempting to unwind itself and release and let go. So the felt sense of any stress in the nervous system is the natural intelligence attempting to balance and harmonize itself. We do not need another story. We do not need any more concepts. It is this utter abandonment and having this aware vigilance that will not buy into any more of the ways that someone creates, let's say, practices and ideas and concepts to keep itself alive. We could even say the benefit of a true practice can only be alive when there is a complete relaxation. As long as there is someone practicing, there is separation, and it is just another worldly tool that believes that worldly practices will make a better worldly experience for someone. It is the way of abandonment, utter abandonment of all of the ways that the mind creates to keep the world and the story alive and cycling around. So again, the mind cannot be responsible for letting go of all of these ideas. It can only be the aware being that can illuminate. And it is in the illumination and the presence of simple being that the clear seeing, the clear vision can come in. We can be so habituated with ideas and practices and ways that we believe are supporting this unfolding, and they can be secretly not supporting this unfolding, because this unfolding is about such a depth of relaxation, such a depth that in that letting go, freedom takes you, it arrives, it appears, because it's here right now and it has always been here. The obscurations are because we are looking in a different direction. We are looking somewhere else, and we are focusing the attention in things, imagining that freedom is not here. But freedom is right here. Wholeness is right here. Love, beauty, divinity is right here. But we are so habituated to look at things and focus upon things. And the mind cannot be the responsible agent for removing the things, because that mind consciousness, it's just moving in a certain vibration, but that certain vibration is limited, and it continues to limit itself. There is a natural intelligence here that is flowing. We are made of the intelligence. We are made of the bliss of consciousness that is free and pure. And yet that consciousness is just dancing in patterns. When we focus upon the patterns, we create more patterns. If we focus upon the ripples and the ebbs and the flows, we nourish and we perpetuate more of those ebbs and flows. When we focus upon the stillness and the silence as the aware being, watching the ebbs and flows, we nourish the stillness. We nourish the deep silent presence, and the ebbs and the flows and the patterns naturally start to relax, because the patterns are moving to relax. The patterns, the flow of the intelligence is naturally moving to relax. This can be impeded by the ideas and the concepts and the protections and the holding on. Of course, the consciousness is still moving to balance and harmonize, but it will keep trying and trying and trying and bumping up against more limitation and trying and bumping up against more limitation. So only when we can illuminate the limitation can that limitation actually just relax and into its naturalness. If we overlay it with, oh, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do, more meditation, more this, more that. If we start overlaying with ideas, even though the ideas might be spiritual ideas and practices that seem like they are supportive, unless there is a complete relaxation, there's still someone practicing something. There's still someone who's tight and contracted, practicing something that they believe will give them a better state, right? So these kind of subtleties we want to be so aware of. If the practices are of the world and in part of the illusion, then they cannot free us, right? So we, in this worldliness, have come to a place where everything is so conceptualized. All of the naturalness of the intelligence of consciousness, even something like Ayurveda, it's so conceptualized and messed up by interpretation, right? There's such a simpleness to life living itself. There is such a simpleness to nature supporting nature, consciousness supporting consciousness. There is an incredible simplicity, and it is as we reveal all of our ideas about what life should be like, what health should be like, what spiritual practice should be like, what a successful day should look like, what a sleep should look like, right? All of these ways that we overlay ideas that have been learned and acquired. Just to notice that everyone has different ideas and none of them are true. Where is the sameness? Where is the flow of nature? We see it in the natural world, a sameness, cycles, seasons, flow, a sameness, the same happenings, right? We are of that same nature, that same intelligence. And it is to come to a naturalness, a depth of relaxation where we are not someone attuned with nature. We are that natural intelligence. We are the natural being, that we are attuned in our natural flow of being life, living itself, right? So we have to come to the end of attempting to create a better experience and surrender all experience to the flow of life, to the flow of grace. Let us surrender all experience. Let us abandon all ideas. all of the, let's say, the worship of false deities, right? What is that? It's everything. We worship the delusion. We worship concepts. We worship falseness. We worship separation. Let us come to the end of worshipping these false deities and abandon it all into this present moment. Enter yourself through being yourself. Do not look for ways to enter yourself that are conceptual. Do not look for practices and more concepts to know yourself. Enter yourself through presence. Enter yourself through such a depth of presence, because there is an abandonment of all of the obscurations, all of the ideas of how to be yourself, all of the ideas of how to be more spiritual. Letting go of all of that and enter yourself through being. Be meditation. Be the flow of gentle breath that is the pranic body, relaxed and natural. Be the flow of nature. Be the flow of life, living itself, and abandon everything that impedes and blocks that flow. Abandon it by illuminating and courageously seeing, allowing true wisdom, insight to come, that sees, oh, that is an idea, that is a habit, that is something that I learned. See it and let it go. Come to a naturalness of being where true intuition, the true intelligence, the intelligent intuition of being the being knows. What is supportive is what feels good. What feels good. We want to be able to be such a beautiful flow of life that every moment is fully met, digested, and released in every single moment, that we're not stocking up toxins, we're not stocking up on stress because we're not able to manage the flow of life, right? So we manage the flow of life, and we're not just speaking of food here, where we speak of digestion. We're speaking, very importantly, about the digestion of all of the flow of life. Every moment, every interaction, every happening, every situation, to fully digest all of life, be life digesting itself through surrendering into itself in every moment, by recognizing what brings a feeling of indigestion, what makes you need to burp up that situation, that interaction, what brings a feeling of nausea and imbalance in your system. Start to notice what environments, what situations, what relationships create that undigested fodder that just becomes toxic waste in the system, stress, right? It is to come to a depth of awareness where we are able to digest in the moment, that we are so attuned to the felt sense of being, the felt sense of the aliveness of the field, that we can feel where there are patterns of, like, alien patterns, discordant patterns moving through, and that we can allow the unraveling and untangling in the moment. We can allow whatever needs to come forward. If there is a trigger or a resistance or some kind of spinning or imbalance, that we can meet it and allow it just to pass through, right? That we're not overlaying it with story, that we're not overlaying it with, oh, an idea of I need to do this, I need to get away. It's just to meet it in the moment. And then the natural intelligence starts to create a flow of that is more smooth and more supportive naturally. Not someone creating it, but life itself creating a smooth flow for itself out of its own consciousness, right? At the point of view. So we are wearing down and eroding all of these habits and patterns and conditionings, all that we have acquired through the play of life, through misunderstanding. We are learning that it is okay to shed it all, to shed everything that does not feel fantastic and nourishing, right? Anything that brings indigestion, don't consume it, right? And so we're speaking of all of the ways that we have learned habitually, even to numb the way of fully feeling and meeting life. If it cannot be nourishing and feel really supportive, right? There's so much imbalance, we could say, at the level of the physicality and body. But this imbalance, it is the imbalance, habitual, accumulated imbalance of stress and toxins. We have to start feeling more deeply, opening not only to the physical layer, but to the depth of the subtle body and the fine feelings, so we can access the intelligence and be the being. Abandon everything that is not deep nourishment for the being. We can have such a deep longing for freedom and be moving in a mind's idea that we are doing everything to support this. But there can just still be so many ideas that are blockading the flow of freedom, just arriving in and shining and saying, oh, freedom is here, right? That freedom just appears, ta-da! Because we are looking elsewhere, right? So we want to stop looking elsewhere and just be here. Be so fully present that all of the tendrils are pulled in, and that the depth of presence that you enter yourself with is an illuminated knowing of being the being. That every moment is the moment to enter yourself in utter presence. That the instruction to be here now is everything. Nothing else is needed. You can burn all of those books, forget about all of those practices, and just be here now, right? We've heard this so many times that even this can be laden with concepts that we think, oh, that old, be here now, right? We've heard that. That's old news. But no, it's the news. It's the only news you need to know, is to be here now, to be so fully here now, and now, and now, and now, and now, and now, and now. Be here. Enter yourself through being yourself. The only practice that is needed is to be yourself now, and now, and now, and to be yourself now. But the mind says, oh, but don't I need more practices? Don't I need more of this? Don't I need more of that? No, be yourself. When you are yourself, you are the natural being. You are natural life. You are the natural flow of intelligence. And everything that is needed is here. There is a knowing here, a natural intelligence that is here. And the deeper that we come into this, it is about uncovering the natural intelligence that is the answer to everything. Now, this is no mean feat. We can come to the depth of knowing the being, but there can still be these subtle tendencies and habits that are very, very old and conditioned that we move towards. We have spoken before of the Prajnaprada, the crime against wisdom, right? The ignoring of the intelligence, the ignoring of the natural, deep knowing of how nature supports nature, what the flow of life needs is known within that flow of grace, in every moment, on every level, in every way. Bodies can live with so much imbalance because there is so much ignoring of the intelligence and a habitual unwillingness to give up habits of preferences of this is just what I do, this is just what I eat, this is just what I do in the evening. And then the worry and the constant stress about the health of the body and the wellness of the body. But are we willing, are we truly, deeply willing to fall into Ma, into the divine light, the divine wholeness, deeply enough that we are led fully by the intelligence, the wisdom, the grace, the flow? It takes a lot. It takes a lot. And it takes a constant coming into the depths of being for that wisdom to be able to get to the surface and flow. Let's say, for that wisdom light to flow on the level of the lived experience, because it has been so pushed down, it takes a lot of surrender and purification and transformation for the depth of natural wisdom to actually be able to get to the surface. It's like a wellspring that has been filled in with sludge and mud, like a wellspring that's ancient, primordial, but it's been filled in with mud and sticks and rocks and leaves and just years and years of being ignored. But when there is this aliveness that is the pull to being, that is the recognition that the wellspring is still here underneath the sludge and the dross, that the wellspring is here, and the wellspring nourishes on every level itself. It clears the debris and dross on every level so it can bubble up and shine its multi-dimensional light, right? So when we come to the felt sense of longing for the being, we can feel the bubbling of the wellspring that is the knowing. It's the essential knowing, the naturalness of life flowing. It's just that at each point where it's been pushed down and ignored, because we were distracted away from it. We were pulled away and we were taught other things. We were overlaid. The wellspring has been overlaid with all kinds of concepts and habits and protections and learned ideas that we were fed. But the wellspring of true life, of being, the freedom of the self, of the wide open, beaming, radiant heart, it's right here. And when we come to the felt sense of this pull into ourself, the wellspring, it's revealing that it's here. And that bubbling of the wellspring is the aliveness of recognizing consciousness, that it's alive, it's well, it's intelligent, and it's here. It's like a deep wellspring of goodness, of essential goodness that's just bursting to flow all through all of the layers of your dimensional beingness. Through all of the layers, it's just bursting to flow but we have to come to a focus and a willingness to clear away those rocks and that mud and the sludge and the leaves and all of the layers, clearing it away, so that we then suddenly reach just a little drop of freshness, of true freshness, of true freshness. Ah, we've been gasping for this. It's like fresh water, fresh air, fresh everything, right? It's just the freshness. We could say it's elemental freshness on every level. It's multi-dimensional vibrancy, the wellspring of life, the elemental flow, right? That we're made of, the intelligence that we're made of. We touch in to this freshness and the pull gets greater. And as the pull gets greater, we are more and more willing to clear away the obscurations and the dross. And what that looks like on the surface of life is being the being that is aware and watching for every single habit. Now, if we come in with the mind and we say, right, life needs a total overhaul, here's the list. We're going to overwhelm ourselves with the mind. Let us just illuminate all of the areas that are being seen now. Yes, write it out. Yes, use writing, the flow of consciousness writing, to illuminate what is being seen. But do not then superimpose another layer of doing, because another layer of doing will be a couple of days of good intention, and then it will fall away again, just like it always has, right? So habits only change. Things only shift when the consciousness shifts, when the pattern unravels. And the pattern only unravels when it is illuminated in the light of awareness, when we could say it is welcomed into a greater possibility, when it is illuminated, welcomed into a greater possibility, and magnetized to its true nature, where the invitation for this pattern to wake up. So it's really about recognizing there is an intelligence here that knows, and it is to give everything that seems like an obscuration to the intelligence, right? So we give it to the intelligence, we give it to the silence. We don't try to work it out with the mind. As we illuminate it and we meet it with presence, we give it to God, we give it to Ma. We give whatever is an obscuration to the intelligence that knows. And we stop trying to fix, and we stop trying to understand, and we stop making it all a problem, right? We're not making more problems. We're just illuminating everything that is ready to come into insight, clear vision. And we allow that illumination to be as full and rich as it can be. A full, rich illumination is the watching of it, the meeting of the feelings that it brings up, allowing that flow of intelligence to really bubble up by not denying, writing about it, even speaking about it in a very conscious way that illumines and bubbles up the hiding. It can allow more of the feelings to come forward. It reveals more of that which is suppressed, right? So we want to meet everything to the fullest possibility. Let love touch all of the functioning of every single fiber of habit and conditioning and protection. Let love touch everything, every single drop of your dysfunctional function habits, right? Let love touch everything. Let love touch all of it. Let the light of presence touch all of it as it is seen. But do not allow any interception to come in with more ideas of how to fix and what to do, and this is what's needed. Just allow love to touch everything so fully that is a habit, a conditioning, a projection, some kind of functioning, resistance, even preferences that create separation, right? We're talking about everything that divides, everything that feels like we can know that it's not nourishing. Even a relationship that the deepest feeling says, I know this relationship isn't nourished, but I do not know how I could live without it. I know this relationship is not nourishing. I know that there are dynamics that are toxic and unfulfilling, but I do not know how to change that. Don't try to change it. Just be aware of it, right? The awareness of it is what illuminates and activates the intelligence in the field for something to shift, right? Of course, there's so many layers of protection that can come in around the entanglement we have in the collective in so many ways. But the ways that we come to free our entanglement is by illuminating where are we entangled? Where are we buying into the news and the gossip and the stories? Where are we perpetuating and collaborating with separation, right? Where are our relationship dynamics perpetuating that? It's not making a problem of anything. It's letting love touch it all, letting the light of wholeness touch it all, so that we don't have to work out how to change or fix anything. Nothing needs to be fixed. Everything is perfectly happening out of your own consciousness, just to be illuminated, just to be freed, just to come up and be fed by the wellspring, right? Nature supports nature. The flow of grace supports itself, but it can only support itself when we are not pulling away from that support by activating and perpetuating old patterns. Nature supports, so these things in the play of life that we recognize, we notice where there's a flow. We notice where it feels like an open door and that it's just happening and it's easeful, right? This is nature supporting nature. When we meet resistances and that things that are not really working, where they don't feel nourishing or they're just not happening with ease, are we pushing and pushing and pushing because there's a me that wants, right? That's not nature supporting nature. That's ideas, crusty ideas, trying to control, right? So we just want to watch. And this can be in every area. It can be in the area of the health and wellness, the area of relationships, any and every relationship. It can be just the habits and the ways that we're living life, practices that we are using, right? On every level, we want to come to an illuminated awareness so that the natural abandonment of everything that is an obscuration can, it's like once we reach the wellspring and the flow of the water, the fresh flow, it starts to clear the wellspring. It starts to bubble up and it starts to flow like a spring, right? We want to let the spring, the life spring, flow within the intelligence of our own consciousness. As the life spring is able to flow, it naturally flows into and nourishes and quenches the thirst of all of these starved and dehydrated areas of the life, right? All of these areas start to be nourished, but the nourishment is presence. It's the natural flow of consciousness. It's the natural flow, right, of life living itself. And it starts to support itself in ways that cannot be understood by the intellect and the mind. It starts to support itself in ways that might even seem completely counterintuitive to the mind and what has been learned about wellness and health and food and relationships. All of these conditioned conventions, right? But just to notice where there are these layers of differences, we want to get underneath where there's a flow of sameness, where the flow of sameness isn't ideas and concepts. Yes, we are unique, and each unique being requires a different flow of nature. So what works for one doesn't necessarily work the same for the other, but nature knows how to adapt, right? Look at the natural world. Every bug, every plant, it's perfectly equipped to adapt to its environment and situation. It naturally knows how to move within the set of circumstances that it uniquely is given. And we are the same. We are the same. So when we are resting in the natural being, it's not a state. It's not any kind of tension or holding. The inward path is the discovery of the wellspring and the flow of the wellspring of natural life living itself, right? And natural life living itself nourishes itself on all levels of life. It nourishes itself in the emotional body. It nourishes itself through the physicality. It refines and cultures itself through the nervous system, the consciousness. It nourishes itself through this deep relaxation, so that true breathing, let's say, the breath of life, can breathe through us, right? So much of our physical imbalance is because there's not really a true breath of life flowing. The majority of beings breathe in a very restricted and limited way. So over many years, that kind of limitation is like the rocks and the mud and the sludge layering up over the wellspring. So the breath of life is the vital life force, vitality, right? The more that we relax into being in the naturalness, the breath of life, unimpeded, flows. And then the sense of our physical breath and breathing is unrestricted and deep, deep, we could say on the physical layer, deep into the lungs, right into the depth of the deep caves of the lungs, and all the way up, right up to here, that we're breathing. The breath of life is moving through us. And as it moves through us, right, through the physical capacity, it's naturally enlivening every cell with that vital energy, right? So the mind might say, well, what has this got to do with my awakening? Everything, everything. It has everything to do with living and embodying and flowing as life, unimpeded. Everything. It has everything to do with knowing the immortal, it's eternal being that is a flow of life. The flow of life is residing and moving through the body. Yes, it lives and it moves without the body. It's moving everywhere. But this lived human experience is about getting the most out of this lived human experience, right? We want to get the most out of it, not as someone, but as consciousness that has the possibility of a human life to know itself. Let consciousness know itself so fully, so deeply as this flow of life living itself. The wholeness, living its own wholeness on every level. Now, of course, we have karmic limitations that come in. And these are situations that we just have to meet. We can get a funky body. So we have to meet and be okay. But we can still be living and flowing as this wellspring, even when there are funky karmic situations to be dealing with, right? So to feel the being the being, to feel this wellspring of life living itself. And this is the aliveness of consciousness, consciously awake and aware of itself. So where we speak of this aliveness in the presence, this aliveness, this awakeness is the awakeness of consciousness, awake to itself, alive in the knowing of itself. And this is where we access the flow of natural intelligence that naturally knows how to live itself. So we have so many layers through our human lives where we have covered up the wellspring. So we come to know the wellspring, we come to know the being. And in right timing, we come to different ways of uncovering even more. Like we're scrabbling around in the earth, uncovering, taking away the sticks and the stones, right? It's like we get to the point where it's like we're standing in the river and we can see where over the winter there have all of these sticks and leaves have fallen into the river and the flow is a little more blocked and the river is rushing, right? We know the true life that we are and it's rushing and yet it's still impeded in certain areas. Can we, even though the river of life is rushing and we can know the being and we can feel the goodness and the flow, can we still be present enough to keep moving away those sticks and those leaves so that there can be even more of a flow in the wellspring of life, so that we clear the debris on all of the layers through the mental body, on the physical body, right? We're moving all of the debris by allowing everything to surface. And as the aware being, we're watching for where obscurations and limitation and separation arises. And hear the flow of grace flowing and flowing and flowing. Consciousness is consciously flowing as grace to know itself in the light of awareness in absolutely every thread of life. All of these threads are moving to awaken to themselves at the point of you as a flow of oneness in order to know the deepest wholeness and bring this wholeness as the shining light right to the surface of life. So as these words come, it's to feel the resonance, to feel the aliveness of the recognition, feel the alive knowing, where the resonance is the intelligence, your natural being intelligence knowing itself. So as these words come, they will be received and heard differently at every point. They will enliven the naturalness of the silent being, but they will also stir up the areas that are ready to surface, right? Where there is an aliveness, where there is a stirring, it's to know that the stirring and the surfacing is the bubbling up of the wellspring, ready to spurt more vital life force right here into the surface of life, through the lived experience, through the physicality, through the energy body, right? It's ready to take a deeper breath. It's ready to exhale fully. It's ready to laugh and giggle, right? Like a flowing river, bubbling, giggling, laughing. Such profound medicine, laughter, the flow of natural happiness and joy, right? It's ready to emerge more. It's ready to bring forward what is ready to be seen. So do not let more layers of interception come in and say, oh no, push that down, push that down. Know that the grace of this life is for all of this to come forward, all of this, everything to come out of suppression and denial, to come out of contraction and holding patterns, to surface, to bubble in true nature, to sing and dance, and to move with joy and happiness, regardless of the situation, to let everything be this flow of life that is bubbling and moving. Even if it seems like there are restrictions on, or subtle limitations on the surface of life, let this flow flow as unimpeded as it can in the lived experience. And it's all about being the natural being. The stillness, the silence, the simplicity. The natural being of restoring the natural connection to being the flow of life. The knowing here is that there is only one, and the one is whole in and of itself, utter perfection, immaculate wholeness, here now. The deeper the resting, the deeper the relaxation, the more the simple natural flow of being, life itself. So of course this flow is the flow of breath, the flow of bliss, true bliss, the flow of true bliss. Life flowing is a flow of bliss. And this is how we come to know what bliss truly is. It's the aliveness of life flowing unimpeded, the bubbling wellspring, the bliss of being. And it's the bliss that nourishes. It's the bliss, the true bliss, the deep peace flowing within itself, unimpeded, natural simplicity that nourishes and carries itself deeper. Mm. So we're polishing, we're sweeping and polishing, right? We're taking care of every single corner, moving away the cobwebs, illuminating, sweeping, clearing, dusting, polishing, shining up the whole flow of the lived experience. Mm. Mm. So just to notice what's being noticed, just what's here. Simple being, deep and silent and still. The alive knowing of the being knowing itself, knowing the truth of your natural being. Mm. Mm. To feel the stillness, the silence of being yourself, the aliveness of the knowing, and to be with what is being noticed. If there's more of a sense of the stillness or the silence, the deep, peaceful, unmoving, pure awareness, or if the aliveness of the presence or the aliveness of the knowing, the aliveness of the flow, just to be with what is being noticed. The light, the love, the beauty, the simple joy that is without cause. This bubbling, bubbling wellspring of knowing the being that you are. Mm. That to feel and know the natural being is simplicity. It's in the natural letting go, the natural relaxation, in the utter abandonment of things. Here you are, just as you have always been, being yourself, naturally, wide open heart, illuminated, radiant presence, the self-knowing itself, right here. That the light is the shining of the knowing, the illumination of the knowing. It's this brilliance. Right here, now, simple being.